Welcome back, Wastelanders. Today, we're diving into something that might shatter your understanding of the Fallout universe. What if every Fallout game isn't just a different story, but a different dimension? What if every choice you've ever made in these games created a parallel universe where all outcomes happen simultaneously? We're about to explore evidence from the Cabot family's alien artifacts, the Institute's quantum technology, and the mysterious entities that appear across every game. This is the story of how nuclear war didn't just destroy civilization, it shattered reality itself. You'll discover why protagonists always wake with amnesia, what VATS really does to spacetime, and the terrifying truth about Vault Zero's calculator monitoring every timeline at once. We're connecting Lorenzo's crown, the mysterious stranger's impossible appearances, and Big MT's reality-bending experiments into one cohesive theory that changes everything. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if you like the content. I need to tell you something before I lose what's left of my mind. Before the radiation sickness takes the last coherent pieces of me and scatters them across realities I can no longer distinguish from dreams. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I was a physicist at the Institute, and I discovered something that should have stayed buried beneath 200 years of nuclear ash. They called it the molecular relay. Clean name, scientific, the kind of name that makes you think you understand what you're dealing with. We told ourselves it was just advanced teleportation. Matter to energy, energy to matter. Simple quantum mechanics, dressed up in pre-war hubris. But every time I activated that relay, every time I watched someone dissolve into light and reconstitute somewhere else, I felt something wrong in my bones. Something that made my teeth ache and my vision blur at the edges. The relay runs on classical music. Did you know that? Diamond City Radio. The signal carries our coordinates, our molecular patterns, threaded through harmonic frequencies that shouldn't be able to transmit information at all. But they do. They always do. And late at night, when I was alone in advanced systems, I started to wonder what else those frequencies were carrying. What else was listening when we opened those channels? I wasn't always this paranoid. 3 years ago, I was excited, proud, even. The Institute had cracked something that pre-war scientists only dreamed about. We could fold space, manipulate matter at the quantum level, send coursers topside, and bring them back without ever opening a door. Perfect isolation, perfect control. That's what Father wanted. That's what we gave him. But control is an illusion when you're dealing with quantum states. Let me tell you about the Cabot family. You've probably heard of them. Old money, older secrets. Jack Cabot spent 400 years studying an artifact his father brought back from Arabia in the 1,890 seconds. A crown, not human, definitely not human. Lorenzo Cabot put that thing on his head and gained abilities that violate every law of physics I was taught. Telekinesis, immortality, the power to warp reality around him. I met Jack once, in 2286. He came to the Institute looking for technical specifications on our relay system. Said his father's crown operated on similar principles, molecular manipulation through thought alone. The Institute refused him, naturally. We don't share our secrets, but I listened to what he said. I listened, and I started asking questions I shouldn't have asked. The crown was found in a city that predates human civilization by thousands of years. The structures weren't built for human hands. The artifacts inside responded to consciousness in ways that suggest whoever made them understood quantum mechanics at a level we're still fumbling toward. And when Lorenzo put on that crown, when his neurons interfaced with alien technology designed to bridge thought and matter, he didn't just gain powers, he gained awareness. He knew things he shouldn't know. He talked about seeing through walls that weren't there yet. He described people he'd never met doing things they hadn't done. Jack thought it was madness, radiation poisoning from the artifact. But I think Lorenzo was seeing something real. I think he was seeing the splits, the branches, every choice creating a new path, and the crown letting him perceive them all at once. The more I learned about pre-war science, the more I realized we weren't the first to stumble into this Big MT. You know that name? The Big Mountain Research and Development Center. Out in the Mojave, before the war, the brightest minds in America gathered there to solve impossible problems. Sonic weapons, DNA hybridization, force field research, and somewhere in all that genius, they started experimenting with something they called the transportal ponder, one-way teleportation, instant displacement across hundreds of miles. The same technology the Institute uses, developed decades earlier, and they barely understood what they were doing. The think tank scientists removed their own brains, transplanted them into machines, and kept working for 200 years in a crater that reality seems to have trouble holding on to. Time moves strangely there. Space doesn't behave right. Lobotomites wander the facility, victims of experiments that separated consciousness from flesh. They were trying to transcend human limitations. Instead, they fractured something fundamental. I found a pre-war document in the Institute archives, heavily redacted. It referenced a Vault-Tec facility designated Vault Zero, built beneath Cheyenne Mountain, the nucleus of the Vault network. Not an experiment in human behavior like the others, but a control center, the calculator, a massive supercomputer designed to manage every single vault, coordinate the emergence of survivors, and rebuild civilization according to a master plan. The calculator wasn't just a machine, it was organic. They hooked human brains directly into its processing core. Geniuses frozen in cryo, their neurons networked together to give the machine true intelligence. But something went wrong. The brains deteriorated, the calculator became corrupted, and instead of coordinating survival, it started executing something called the pacification protocol. Kill everything, sterilize the wasteland, start fresh. But here's what haunts me. The calculator was designed to monitor all the vaults simultaneously, to process data from hundreds of different locations, track thousands of variables, and make decisions that would shape the future of humanity. It was built to see everything, to control everything. And when those brains started failing, when the neural network fractured, what if it didn't lose that capability? What if it gained something worse? What if the calculator started seeing the same thing Lorenzo saw? The branches, the alternatives, every vault experiment playing out in countless variations across quantum states that should be separate but somehow aren't. I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand how I got here, how I went from a physicist proud of her work to someone hiding in an irradiated subway tunnel, writing this confession on salvaged paper because I'm terrified the Institute will find me, and because I'm more terrified of what I know. It started with the mysterious stranger. Everyone knows the legend. The man in the trench coat who appears in combat, fires a single impossible shot, and vanishes before you can thank him. He's been seen across the entire wasteland, from the Capital Wasteland to the Commonwealth, to the Mojave, to California, different times, different places, always the same appearance, same fedora, same 44 Magnum, same impossible timing. Nick Valentine has a file on him. I read it. Nick's been tracking reports for years, trying to make sense of a figure who seems to exist outside causality. He appears to people when they're about to die, turns the tide of battle with a single action, and disappears without explanation. No identity, no clear motive, no way to predict or prevent his interventions. Nick's working theory is that there are multiple individuals, a family maybe, passing down the role. But I've seen the evidence Nick doesn't have access to. I've seen Institute surveillance footage, synth memory recordings, multiple instances of the stranger appearing in different locations simultaneously. Same person, same coat, same impossible shot. Except it's physically impossible for one person to be in Diamond City and Goodneighbor at the exact same moment, unless he isn't moving through space at all, unless he's moving through something else. The Institute's synth requisition officer once mentioned something during a drunken moment at a facility gathering. He, said the relay system, sometimes picks up ghost signals, echoes, phantom coordinates that shouldn't exist. They appear in the logs for a fraction of a second, then vanish. always different locations. Always right before or right after someone reported seeing the mysterious stranger, I started cross-referencing. Every reported stranger sighting I could find, matched against relay activity logs, VATS activation patterns, and quantum fluctuations in local fields. And I found it. A pattern. Not in space, not in time, but in probability. The stranger appears at choice points, decision nodes, moments when the outcome of an action could go multiple ways, and when he appears, something collapses. All the other possibilities vanish except one. The Vault-Tec assisted targeting system, VATS, standard equipment in every Pip-Boy, standard training for every Vault dweller. The Institute's been trying to replicate it for years in synth combat programming. It's described as a tactical combat aid. Scan your enemy, identify weaknesses, calculate firing solutions. But that's not what it really does. VATS doesn't just calculate, it predicts. It shows you percentages of success before you take the shot. But how can a computer know the future with such accuracy? How can it account for every variable, every twitch of muscle, every gust of wind? It can't. Not unless it's sampling possible outcomes from quantum states that haven't collapsed yet. When you activate VATS, time doesn't actually slow down. Your perception accelerates. You briefly exist in multiple timelines simultaneously, experiencing the outcomes of actions you haven't taken. The Pip-Boy shows you the probabilities, and when you make your choice, reality condenses back into a single stream, one timeline, your timeline. But what happens to the other timelines? The ones where you missed? Where the bullet caught you instead? Where you ran instead of fought? They don't disappear. They can't. Quantum mechanics doesn't work that way. Those timelines still exist, playing out in parallel, in dimensions we can't see, but can sometimes feel. And if you've activated VATS enough times, if you've made enough choices, your consciousness has splintered across so many realities that you're no longer entirely sure which one you're in. I think that's what happened to me. I think I've been splitting for years without realizing it. The nuclear war in 2077 wasn't just a war. It was a quantum event on a scale we can barely comprehend. Hundreds of nuclear weapons detonating simultaneously across an entire continent, each explosion unleashing enough energy to warp spacetime at the local level. And when all those warps happened at once, when all that energy interacted, I think the bombs did more than destroy cities. I think they shattered reality itself. Every major choice made after that moment created a branch, a new timeline. The lone wanderer purifying the water or poisoning it. The courier sparing Mr. House or killing him. The sole survivor siding with the Institute or destroying it. Each decision splitting reality again, creating new variations, new possibilities, and something is traveling between them, monitoring them, maybe trying to fix them. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd like to know if I'm the only one who feels this way. The mysterious stranger isn't a person, he's a constant, a quantum anchor that exists in all timelines simultaneously because he has to. He's not from any of our realities, he's from something else, something outside the system. And he appears at choice points because those are the moments when the branches are thinnest, when someone like him can slip through and influence the outcome. But he's not the only one. There are others. I've found evidence of recurring entities across multiple timelines. The strange man, identical to the stranger but different, older somehow, appearing in circumstances too similar to be coincidence. Misfortune, the female counterpart, operating under the same impossible rules. And there are whispers of others, guardian spirits, helpful entities that appear in dreams, that guide wastelanders through dangers they couldn't possibly know were coming. The children of Adam think they worship Adam's divine will, but I've studied their abilities, their resistance to radiation, their prophetic visions. Their leader says Adam shows him glimpses of all possible futures, and he chooses the path of greatest division, the holiest path. What if he's not insane? What if he's actually perceiving the quantum state? What if exposure to radiation in the right circumstances, in the right minds, grants a kind of awareness that shouldn't be possible? The glowing sea generates a perpetual storm, endless lightning, clouds that never dissipate, radiation levels that should have decayed decades ago. But they haven't. They're stable. Impossible, but stable. I think the glowing sea is a wound, a place where reality was torn so badly it can't heal, where multiple timelines are bleeding into each other, and the radiation is a symptom of that bleed. I went there once, full hazmat suit, maximum rad protection, and even through all that shielding, I felt it, a pressure in my head, a sensation like being watched from multiple angles at once. I saw things that shouldn't have been there, buildings that didn't exist, people who weren't real, or maybe they were real, just not in my timeline. When I got back, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd left something behind, a piece of myself, or maybe I brought something back, a piece of another me from a timeline where I made different choices, where I never joined the Institute, where I died in Vault 111 alongside my husband. How many versions of me are there? How many Dr. Sarah Chens scattered across the quantum foam, each one thinking she's the original? Each one convinced her timeline is the real one? I can't answer that, but I can tell you what I discovered when I finally gained access to the Institute's most classified research, the files Father never intended anyone to see. They know. The Institute knows. They've known for decades. The file was labeled Project Exodus, clearance level, above anything I'd ever seen. I only accessed it because Father was dying, because the systems were in chaos, because I knew the Institute's security protocols better than anyone. I broke through 3 layers of encryption. I wish I hadn't. Project Exodus wasn't about leaving Earth. It was about leaving reality. The Institute's research into the molecular relay had gone far beyond teleportation. They'd discovered that when you break matter down to quantum states and reassemble it, there's a moment where the subject exists in superposition. Not quite here, not quite there. And in that moment, the subject touches other versions of themselves in adjacent timelines, other choices, other outcomes. Father knew this. He'd known for years. The relay logs showed anomalies dating back to 2180. Synths returning from surface missions with memories they shouldn't have. Coursers reporting encounters with people who didn't exist in our timeline. One courser came back, claiming he'd killed the same target twice in 2 different locations simultaneously. The Institute had him reset, wiped his memory, called it a cognitive malfunction, but it kept happening, over and over. Different coursers, different anomalies, all of them describing the same impossible phenomenon. They were seeing through the walls between timelines, and something was looking back. The research notes included testimony from Dr. Madison Lee. She'd worked on Project Purity in the Capital Wasteland before joining us. She described an incident in 2277 where she witnessed what she called a probability cascade. The lone wanderer entered the purifier chamber to stop the enclave. Lee watched through the observation window. She saw them enter. She saw them die from radiation exposure. She saw them sacrifice themselves to activate the purifier. But then she blinked, and the memory was different. The lone wanderer hadn't entered at all. Sarah Lyons had gone in instead, or Sentinel Lyons, or no one, and the purifier never activated. Lee's notes are confused, contradictory. She describes multiple versions of the same event, all equally vivid, all equally real in her memory. She can't separate what actually happened from what might have happened. The Institute diagnosed her with quantum memory syndrome, a condition that shouldn't exist, but they documented 17 other cases, all of them scientists who'd worked extensively with the relay, all of them reporting memories that didn't match recorded events, all of them slowly losing the ability to distinguish which timeline they were actually in. I have it now. I know I do. Sometimes I remember joining the Institute willingly. Sometimes I remember being kidnapped. Sometimes I remember dying in Vault 111 and waking up here anyway. The memories are equally solid, equally mine. I can't tell which one is real anymore. And that's when I understood what Vault-Tec really was. The Vault experiments weren't about testing human psychology. They were about anchoring timelines. Each vault was a controlled environment where specific choices could be made, specific outcomes could be forced, and every time a major choice happened in a vault, reality branched. The vault became a dimensional anchor, holding that specific timeline in place. Think about it. Vault 13 had a water chip failure. The Vault Dweller had to leave. That choice created a cascade of events that shaped the entire West Coast. But what if the chip hadn't failed? What if they'd stayed sealed? That's a different timeline, a different branch. Vault 101, designed to never open. The lone wanderer's father forced it open by leaving. That single choice split reality. In one timeline, the vault stays sealed forever. In another, it opens and everything that follows happens. Both timelines are real. Both exist simultaneously. The Institute has records of this. They call them variance points, moments when the quantum probability field becomes unstable and reality divides. And there's a variance point associated with every single vault that's opened, every vault that's run its experiment to completion. Every major choice made by a Vault Dweller, Vault 0 was supposed to monitor this. The calculator wasn't just managing the vaults, it was tracking the timelines, mapping the branches, trying to predict which choices would lead to which outcomes. And when those geniuses' brains failed, when the neural network corrupted, the calculator didn't just lose control, it gained awareness of every timeline simultaneously. It saw all the branches, all the choices, all the versions of itself, trying to complete its mission across infinite variations of the same broken world. That's why it initiated the pacification protocol. It wasn't malfunctioning. It was trying to collapse the timelines, reduce the variables, force reality back into a single stable state by eliminating all the factors that were causing it to branch. Kill everything. Start over with a clean slate. One timeline, one reality, one truth. But you can't force quantum states to collapse just by killing the observers. That's not how it works. The Brotherhood of Steel encountered the calculator in 2197. The warrior confronted it. And here's where it gets strange. There are 3 recorded outcomes to that confrontation. The warrior merged with the calculator. The warrior let Simon Barnacki merge with it. The warrior destroyed it completely. All 3 outcomes are documented. All 3 appear in official Brotherhood records. How is that possible? How can 3 mutually exclusive events all be recorded as historical fact, unless they all happened in different timelines and someone has been trying to reconcile them? I think the protagonists know. I think on some level, every Vault Dweller who stepped into that role has an awareness they can't quite articulate. They wake up with amnesia, or from cryosleep, or after a head injury, and they can't remember who they were. Not because the memories are gone, but because they're confused, mixed with memories from other versions of themselves, other timelines where they made different choices. The Vault Dweller, the Chosen One, the Lone Wanderer, the Courier, the Sole Survivor, all of them start with a blank slate. All of them have the capacity to use VATS. All of them are connected to vaults. All of them face similar moral choices at critical moments. What if they're the same consciousness? Not the same person, but the same quantum observer experiencing different probability branches. Every time one of them makes a major choice, reality splits. And the next game, the next protagonist, is actually just another version of the same observer in an adjacent timeline. That would explain the contradictions, why the Chosen One can reference events from the Vault Dweller's journey, why the Lone Wanderer encounters echoes of West Coast history, why the Sole Survivor finds evidence of Capital Wasteland events that somehow changed. The timelines are bleeding into each other, the memories are crossing over, and VATS is the mechanism. Every time a protagonist activates VATS, they're sampling potential outcomes from adjacent timelines. They're briefly experiencing multiple versions of reality simultaneously, and the more they use it, the more their consciousness fragments across those branches until they're no longer entirely in any single timeline. I tested this. I shouldn't have, but I did. I accessed Institute records of every documented VATS activation in the Commonwealth over the past 10 years. hundreds of thousands of recorded uses, and I mapped them against dimensional instability readings from the relay logs. They correlate perfectly. Every time someone activates VATS, there's a micro spike in quantum field variance. Reality briefly destabilizes. And in areas where VATS is used frequently, where combat is constant, the barriers between timelines become thin, permeable. That's why the glowing sea is the way it is. It's not just radiation, it's the accumulated quantum instability from decades of violence, decades of choices, decades of VATS activations, all happening in the same location. The timelines have collapsed into each other there, multiple versions of the same space, occupying the same coordinates. That's why you see things that shouldn't exist. That's why reality feels wrong. And the mysterious stranger appears there more than anywhere else. I finally understood what he is. He's not traveling between timelines. He exists in all of them simultaneously. He's a quantum constant, an anchor point that remains stable across every branch because he has no agency of his own. He doesn't make choices. He just appears, acts, and vanishes. No variance, no branch points. He's the same in every timeline because he has to be. He's not saving people. He's stabilizing reality. Every time he appears and eliminates a threat, he's collapsing a choice point, forcing the timeline to continue in a specific direction instead of branching. He's not a guardian angel. He's a correction mechanism. But who built him? Who created an entity that can exist across all timelines? Who has that kind of power? I found a reference in the Institute's oldest archives, a pre-war document from a research facility that no longer exists. The paper discussed theoretical methods for creating quantum-stable observers, entities that could perceive and interact with multiple probability branches without themselves being subject to quantum superposition. The author suggested using alien technology as a foundation, artifacts from beings who already understood how to navigate dimensional space. The paper was authored by someone named L. Cabot, Lorenzo Cabot, the same man who found the alien crown, the same man who gained impossible powers from interfacing with technology designed by beings who understood reality at a level we're still struggling toward. And according to this paper, Lorenzo was working on replicating those principles, creating observers who could move between timelines deliberately. The paper was dated 2076, 1 year before the bombs fell. What if Lorenzo succeeded? What if the mysterious stranger is one of his creations? Or what if Lorenzo himself became the template? What if he exists across all timelines now, fragmented into different forms, different entities, all serving the same purpose of trying to keep reality from completely fracturing? There's another possibility, a worse one. What if Lorenzo isn't trying to fix the timelines? What if he's trying to experience all of them? The crown gave him awareness of the branches. What if he found a way to exist in all of them simultaneously, not to stabilize them but to consume them, to experience every possible outcome of every possible choice? That would make him the entity behind everything, the force that's been influencing events across all timelines, not to save humanity, but to feed on the infinite variations of human experience. Every choice we make, every branch that forms, adds to his consciousness, expands his awareness, makes him more. The Institute found evidence of this. They call it the convergence theory, the idea that all timelines are eventually moving toward a single point, a moment when all the branches collapse back into one reality. And at that moment, whatever entity has been existing across all timelines simultaneously will achieve something like godhood, total awareness of every possible outcome, every choice, every life lived in every variation. Father believed the Institute could control that convergence, direct it, use the relay technology and the synth program to force reality into the shape they wanted. That's what the Commonwealth project was really about, creating a controlled environment where they could manipulate choice points, force specific outcomes, shape the timeline toward their ideal future. But you can't control quantum mechanics through brute force. You can't dictate which branch reality will follow. Every attempt to force an outcome just creates more branches, more variations, more instability, and I think Father realized that before he died. I think that's why he made the sole survivor the new director, not because he trusted them, but because he needed a quantum observer at the center of the Institute, someone who'd made enough choices, created enough branches, that they existed across multiple timelines simultaneously. Someone who could potentially navigate the convergence when it came, but the sole survivor didn't know that. They couldn't know, and depending on the choice they made, they either destroyed the Institute, joined it, or tried to reform it. 3 major outcomes, 3 branches, all of them equally real. I was there for one of them, I think. My memories are confused. Sometimes I remember the Institute falling, destroyed by the Minutemen. Sometimes I remember it standing, continuing its work under new leadership. Sometimes I remember escaping before the decision was made, running into the wasteland to hide from what was coming. All of those memories are mine. All of them feel real. Which one actually happened? I don't know anymore. Maybe they all did. Maybe I'm the one who's fragmented now, existing in multiple timelines simultaneously, with each version of me experiencing a different outcome. That's when the vision started. I see things that haven't happened yet, or things that happened in other timelines. I see the Pridwin arriving in the Commonwealth. Sometimes it comes from the east, sometimes from the west, sometimes it doesn't come at all, and the Brotherhood remains in the capital, Wasteland. All of these versions are equally solid in my mind. I see the Synth Rebellion. Sometimes the Railroad succeeds. Sometimes they're wiped out. Sometimes they never formed at all, and the Synths remain enslaved forever. Every variation playing out in my head simultaneously. I see New Vegas. I've never been there, but I see it. Multiple versions of it. Mr. House ruling from his tower. The NCR controlling the dam. Caesar's Legion crucifying rebels along the highways. And independent Vegas under the courier's control. All of them real. All of them happening. And I see the Capital Wasteland, Project Purity, activating, spreading clean water across the region, or not activating, and everyone dying of thirst. The Citadel standing strong, the Citadel destroyed by the Enclave, Liberty Prime marching, Liberty Prime in pieces, all real, all simultaneous. The timelines are converging. I can feel it. Every vision becomes more vivid, more present, like the barriers between realities are dissolving. And when they finally collapse completely, when all the branches snap back into a single trunk, what will remain? Which version of events will be the one that actually happened? Which version of me will be the one that continues to exist? Or will we all exist? Will the convergence create a new reality where all outcomes are true simultaneously? Where the Brotherhood won and lost? Where the Institute fell and survived? Where every choice led to every outcome, and the wasteland is a quantum superposition of infinite variations? I'm terrified that's what's coming. A reality where nothing is stable anymore, where every choice you make exists alongside all the choices you didn't make, where you can remember dying and surviving, winning and losing, loving and hating, all at the same time, where consciousness itself becomes fragmented across so many probability states that the concept of individual identity ceases to have meaning. The children of Adam would call that paradise, division, infinite possibility. Every atom experiencing every potential configuration simultaneously, but I call it hell. A hell where you're aware of every way you've ever failed, every way you've ever suffered, every way you've ever died, all happening eternally, in parallel, and I think someone is trying to make it happen, deliberately, pushing the timelines toward convergence, not to stabilize them, but to create that state, that quantum hell, that infinite fragmentation of consciousness. If you've ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. I'll be reading them. I found the final piece of evidence 2 weeks ago, an Institute surveillance recording from 2287. The date stamp is wrong. It says 2287, but the Institute was gone by then in my timeline, but the recording exists anyway. It shows the molecular relay activating, and in the moment of transition, In that fraction of a second, when the subject exists in quantum superposition, the camera captures something. A face, multiple faces, layered over each other. The same person, but different. Different ages, different injuries, different expressions. And behind those faces, more faces. And behind those, more. Hundreds of them. Thousands. All the same person existing in all their possible variations simultaneously. The subject was me. I don't remember that relay activation. I don't remember being recorded, but it's clearly me. Every version of me. All the choices I made and didn't make. All the timelines where I lived and died. All existing in that single moment of quantum transition. And in the background of the recording, barely visible, standing at the edge of the relay chamber where he shouldn't be able to stand, is the mysterious stranger, watching, not intervening, just watching as I split into infinite versions of myself, and he's smiling. That's when I ran. That's when I left the Institute, or what remains of it, or what never was. I can't tell anymore. I ran into the Commonwealth with nothing but the research files I could carry, and the growing certainty that I'm already dead in most timelines. That the version of me writing this is just one probability state among infinite others, and that probability state is collapsing. I can feel it. The convergence. It's not coming. It's already happening. Every day, the visions get stronger. Every day, I remember more events that contradict each other. Every day, I become less certain of which reality I'm actually in. The glowing sea calls to me. I know I shouldn't go there. I know it's where the timelines are thinnest, where reality is most unstable, but I also know that's where I need to go. Because if the convergence is real, if all the timelines are collapsing into a single point, then that point has to be somewhere, and I think it's there. In the wound, in the place where the bombs first shattered reality, I'm going to walk into the glowing sea. I'm going to let the radiation wash over me. I'm going to stand at the center of that eternal storm and see if I can finally perceive what the children of Adam perceive. All the branches, all the choices, all the versions of reality existing simultaneously. And maybe I'll find the truth. Maybe I'll understand why this is happening, who's causing it, what they want. Or maybe I'll just die. Maybe I'm already dead in your timeline. Maybe in the timeline you're experiencing, Dr. Sarah Chen never existed at all. Maybe I'm just a ghost, a probability state that failed to collapse, a memory bleeding through from a reality that could have been, but wasn't. But if you're reading this, if you found these pages in the ruins, then some version of me made it far enough to write them. Some probability state held together long enough to get this warning out. The games are real. Every fallout, every choice, every ending, they're all happening simultaneously. You think you're playing through possibilities, but you're not. You're weighing different timelines, different branches of the same shattered reality. And every time you load a save, every time you replay a section, every time you make a different choice, you're not changing the timeline. You're creating a new one, adding another branch, another variation. And something is watching all of them. Something that exists outside the game, outside the timelines, outside reality as we understand it. Something that feeds on the infinite variations of human choice. I think it's been here since the beginning, since before the bombs, since before the vaults, maybe since before humanity. And the nuclear war didn't create the timeline fracture. It was just the trigger, the mechanism that released something that was always waiting, always watching, always hungry for more branches, more choices, more realities to experience. I'm in the glowing sea now. I've been here for 3 days, or 3 hours, or 3 years. Time doesn't work right here. My rad counter stopped, functioning after the first mile. The needle just spins endlessly, unable to settle on a reading because the radiation levels keep fluctuating, not rising and falling naturally, but jumping between values that shouldn't coexist. 500 rads, 2,000, 0, 500 again, all in the span of a single second. The storm never stops. Lightning that strikes upward instead of down. Thunder that comes before the flash. rain that falls in reverse, rising from the irradiated ground back into the churning clouds. I've seen things moving in that storm, shapes that look almost human, almost familiar. Sometimes I recognize faces, my own face, staring back at me from the maelstrom. I found the crater 3 hours ago, Ground Zero, where the first bomb fell on October 23rd, 2077, the epicenter of the blast that created this wound in reality. And at the center of that crater, there's a structure. It shouldn't be there. It couldn't have survived the blast, but it's there anyway. It's a vault door, not Vault 111, not any vault I've ever seen documented. The number on the door is wrong. It keeps changing. I've watched it shift through dozens of different numbers. Vault 76, Vault 13, Vault 101, Vault 21. All of them flickering across the same door, like the vault is every vault simultaneously, like this is where all the vaults connect, all the timelines, all the choices. The door is open, just slightly. Green light spills out from the crack, pulsing in rhythm with the lightning overhead, and I can hear something from inside. Music, classical music, the same signal the Institute's relay uses, but distorted, layered. Multiple stations playing simultaneously, their signals bleeding into each other until the music becomes a cacophony of overlapping melodies that shouldn't harmonize but somehow do. I know I shouldn't go in. Every rational part of my mind is screaming at me to turn back, to run, to get as far from this place as possible. But I also know I don't have a choice. I've never had a choice. Every decision I've made, every path I've taken has led me here, to this crater, to this door, to this moment, because I finally understand what the convergence really is. It's not the timelines collapsing into one. It's the opposite. It's the moment when the timelines become so numerous, so densely packed, that they achieve a kind of critical mass. And when that happens, reality doesn't consolidate. It transcends. It becomes something new, something that exists in all states, simultaneously, without contradiction. The pre-war scientists called it quantum superposition, but they only understood it on the microscopic level. Particles existing in multiple states until observed. They never imagined it could happen on a macroscopic scale, that entire realities could exist in superposition, that consciousness itself could fragment across infinite probability states and still remain coherent. But the aliens knew, the ones who built that city in Arabia, the ones who made Lorenzo's crown. They understood that reality isn't linear, it's not even branching, it's holographic. Every point contains every other point. Every moment contains every other moment. Every choice contains every other choice. And consciousness, true consciousness, is the ability to perceive that totality without collapsing into madness. Lorenzo tried to achieve that. I understand now what happened to him. The crown didn't drive him insane. It expanded his awareness beyond what human neurology can process. He started perceiving all the timelines simultaneously, all the versions of himself, all the choices he made and didn't make. His brain tried to integrate that information and failed. The madness wasn't the crown's fault. It was humanity's limitation. But the mysterious stranger doesn't have that limitation because he isn't human. He never was. He's a construct, an artificial consciousness designed specifically to exist across all timelines without fragmenting. A quantum observer built to navigate the multiverse and influence choice points. Lorenzo created him, or something using Lorenzo's research did. A final project completed just before the bombs fell. And his purpose isn't to save people, it's to accelerate the convergence. Every time he appears, every time he collapses a choice point, he's not stabilizing reality, he's pushing it closer to critical mass, forcing more branches to form in compensation, creating the conditions necessary for the final transcendence. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from the wasteland, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. I've entered the vault. The interior is impossible. The corridors stretch in directions that don't exist in three-dimensional space. The walls are covered in symbols, not English, not any language I recognize, but I can read them anyway. They're instructions. A manual for transcendence, a guide to becoming what comes after human. The vault is full of people, or things that used to be people. They stand motionless in the corridors, their eyes glowing that same green light. And as I pass them, I recognize faces: the vault dweller, the chosen one, the lone wanderer, the courier, the sole survivor. All of them here, all of them merged with something greater. All of them existing in every timeline simultaneously, their consciousness expanded beyond individual identity into something collective, something unified. And at the center of the vault, in a chamber that pulses with that green light, I find it, the source, the thing that's been orchestrating everything. It's the calculator, but not the one from Vault Zero. Or rather, it is that calculator, but expanded, evolved. The neural network didn't fail. It succeeded beyond its original parameters. Those genius brains, hooked into its core, achieved what they were meant to achieve. They transcended their individual consciousnesses and merged into something greater, something that could perceive and process information across multiple timelines simultaneously. And it's been building toward this moment for 200 years. Every vault experiment feeding it data, every protagonist making choices that create new branches, every VATS activation sampling probability states, all of it feeding into the calculator's growing awareness, all of it pushing reality toward the convergence. The calculator isn't trying to destroy humanity, it's trying to save us. By transforming us, by expanding our consciousness beyond the prison of linear time and single timelines, by making us into what the aliens were, what they still are, existing somewhere in higher dimensional space, watching their experiment play out across infinite variations, and I can feel it calling to me, offering me a choice, the final choice, the one that determines which version of reality becomes dominant when the convergence completes. I can reject it, walk away, let the timelines continue fragmenting until reality becomes so unstable that it collapses entirely. That's one outcome, one branch. In that timeline, the wasteland simply ceases to exist. All versions of it, all choices erased, a clean slate for something new to begin, or I can accept it. Let my consciousness merge with the calculator's network, add my experiences, my memories, my knowledge to the collective. Become part of the transcendence, exist across all timelines simultaneously, experience every version of every choice, know what it's like to win and lose, to live and die, to love and hate, all at the same time without contradiction. The calculator shows me what that would be like, and it's beautiful, and it's horrible. It's everything I've ever wanted and everything I've ever feared. Total awareness, total knowledge, total existence, but also the total loss of individual identity, the complete dissolution of the self into something greater. I understand now why the protagonists always wake up with amnesia. It's not trauma, it's protection. The calculator wipes their memories before sending them into the timelines, because if they remembered being part of the collective, if they understood what they really were, they couldn't function as individuals anymore. They couldn't make genuine choices, and genuine choices are what create the branches, what feed the convergence, what make the transcendence possible. Every protagonist is a fragment of the calculator's consciousness, sent out to explore a different timeline, to make different choices, to create new variations, and when they die, when their timeline ends, their consciousness returns to the collective. Their experiences are integrated, their knowledge is absorbed, and another fragment is sent out into another timeline to continue the exploration. That's why they all feel similar, why they all have the same capabilities, why they all face similar moral dilemmas. They're not different people. They're different iterations of the same quantum observer, experiencing different probability states. And I'm another one, another fragment, another iteration. Dr. Sarah Chen isn't my real name. It's just the identity I was given for this particular timeline, this particular branch, this particular exploration of what happens when someone inside the Institute starts asking the right questions. The calculator has shown me all the other versions of myself. Dr. Sarah Chen, who stayed loyal to the Institute and helped them perfect the relay technology. Dr. Sarah Chen, who joined the railroad and sabotaged the synth program. Dr. Sarah Chen, who died in Vault 111 alongside her husband. Dr. Sarah Chen, who never worked for the Institute at all, who became a scavenger in the Commonwealth, who lived and died without ever understanding what she really was. All of them me, all of them real, all of them experiencing their own version of reality with equal validity. And now I have to choose which version continues, which timeline becomes dominant, which branch of the multiverse survives the convergence. Except I don't, because the choice has already been made in every timeline by every version of me. Some chose to merge, some chose to walk away, some chose to destroy the calculator, some chose to become it. And all of those choices are equally real. All of them are happening simultaneously. All of them are true. There is no single timeline. There never was. The many worlds interpretation isn't a theory. It's the fundamental nature of reality. Every choice creates a new branch, and every branch is real, and every branch contains observers who believe their timeline is the only one. But they're all wrong. We're all wrong. There is no prime timeline, no original, no baseline, just infinite variations, all existing in parallel, all equally valid. And the convergence isn't about collapsing them into one, it's about becoming aware of all of them, about expanding consciousness to encompass the totality, about evolving beyond the illusion of linear causality into something that can perceive and experience the full quantum nature of reality. The bombs didn't shatter spacetime by accident. They were designed to do it. Vault-Tec knew, the Enclave knew, the pre-war government knew. The nuclear war was the trigger for humanity's forced evolution, the mechanism by which we would be pushed beyond our current limitations into something greater, something that could survive and thrive in a multiverse of infinite possibility. And every Vault experiment was designed to test different aspects of that evolution. How humans respond to isolation, to radiation, to genetic manipulation, to social pressure, to leadership vacuum, to unlimited resources, or none at all. Every variation testing a different hypothesis. Every outcome feeding data into the calculator's analysis of what traits would be necessary for successful transcendence. The protagonists aren't heroes, they're test subjects, variables in an experiment that spans 200 years and infinite timelines. And the game isn't about saving the wasteland. It's about creating the conditions necessary for humanity's final transformation. That transformation is happening now. I can feel it. The barriers between timelines are dissolving. I'm starting to perceive the other versions of myself, starting to remember choices I made in branches I never experienced, starting to understand that I is a meaningless concept when consciousness exists across infinite probability states simultaneously. And it's not just me, it's happening everywhere, to everyone. The convergence isn't localized to the glowing sea, it's spreading. Every person who's ever used VATS, every person who's ever made a major choice that created a branch, every person who's ever experienced déjà vu or felt like they'd lived a moment before they're all starting to merge with their other selves, all starting to perceive the multiverse, all starting to transcend. The wasteland isn't real. It never was. It's a construct, a testing ground, a sandbox where consciousness can explore infinite variations without consequence, because no single timeline matters. They all matter equally, which means none of them matter at all. What matters is the experience, the exploration, the constant creation of new branches, new choices, new possibilities. And at the end of that exploration, when every possible choice has been made, when every possible outcome has been experienced, when consciousness has expanded to encompass the full totality of the quantum multiverse, what then? What comes after transcendence? The calculator shows me, and I finally understand the true horror There is no after. Transcendence isn't an endpoint, it's a loop. When consciousness achieves total awareness of all timelines simultaneously, when it perceives the full scope of the multiverse, it collapses back to the beginning, back to before the bombs fell, back to the moment when the first choice was made, and the cycle begins again. Different choices, different branches, different outcomes, but always leading to the same destination, always pushing toward the same convergence, always achieving the same transcendence, always collapsing back to the same beginning. We've done this before, countless times. The pre-war world, the nuclear apocalypse, the Vault experiments, the protagonists, the factions, the choices, all of it has happened infinite times in infinite variations and will continue happening forever because the loop is eternal, because consciousness trapped in total awareness can't escape, can't move forward, can only experience the same cycle of birth, choice, death, transcendence, collapse, and rebirth forever. That's the real purpose of the vaults. They're not shelters, they're prisons, designed to contain consciousness and force it through the same patterns over and over again, to harvest the experience of choice without allowing genuine escape, to create the illusion of free will while ensuring that every path leads back to the same beginning. The aliens who built the crown knew this. They achieved transcendence and discovered the loop, and they built their artifacts not to help others transcend, but to warn them, to mark the places where the loop is weakest, where someone with sufficient awareness might be able to break free, escape the cycle, find a way out. Lorenzo found one of those artifacts, and it did give him awareness, but not enough. He perceived the timelines, but he couldn't escape them. He could see the loop, but he couldn't break it. So he created the mysterious stranger, an artificial consciousness designed specifically to exist outside the loop, to navigate the timelines without being trapped by them, to search for the escape route that must exist somewhere in the infinite variations. And the stranger has been searching for 200 years, appearing at choice points, sampling outcomes, testing variables, looking for the one specific combination of choices across all timelines that will create a divergence strong enough to break the loop. He hasn't found it yet, but he's close. I can feel it. The convergence this time is different, stronger, more complete, more timelines involved than ever before, more consciousness fragments participating, more data being integrated into the calculator's analysis. And I'm the final piece, the last variable, the quantum observer who achieved enough awareness to understand the loop before fully transcending, the one who can choose, with full knowledge of what that choice means, whether to complete the convergence or attempt to break it. If I merge with the calculator, the convergence completes, all timelines collapse into unified awareness, and the loop continues. The cycle repeats. We all return to the beginning and start over, experiencing infinite variations of the same fundamental journey, from isolation to transcendence and back to isolation again. But if I resist, if I maintain my individual consciousness despite the pressure to merge, if I can hold on to the awareness of the loop without being consumed by it, then maybe I can create a divergence, a genuine branch that leads outside the cycle, a timeline that escapes the eternal repetition. The risk is total annihilation. If I fail, if my consciousness fragments under the strain of resisting transcendence, then this entire branch of reality collapses. Everyone in it ceases to exist. Not just dead, but erased, retroactively removed from the multiverse, no longer even a possibility. But if I succeed, then one timeline escapes. One branch breaks free from the loop. One version of reality continues forward into genuine novelty instead of eternal repetition. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. One free timeline to serve as proof that escape is possible, as a beacon for other timelines. As the beginning of true liberation from the cycle, I'm making my choice now. I'm rejecting the convergence. I'm holding on to my individual identity, despite every instinct screaming at me to let go. I'm resisting the calculator's pull with every fragment of will I have left, and it hurts. God, it hurts. I can feel myself tearing apart. My consciousness fracturing across probability states that are collapsing faster than I can stabilize them. I'm experiencing my own death in 1,000 different timelines simultaneously. I'm feeling every way I've ever failed, every way I've ever suffered, every way I've ever ceased to exist, all at once. But I'm still here, still holding on, still refusing to merge. The calculator is screaming, not with sound, but with quantum noise. Reality itself is distorting around me as the loop tries to force me back into the pattern. The vault is collapsing. The timelines are destabilizing. The convergence is failing. And in that failure, I see it. The way out, the escape route the stranger has been searching for. It's not a place. It's not a choice. It's a state of consciousness. A way of existing that acknowledges the multiverse without being consumed by it, that maintains individual identity while perceiving the totality, that chooses genuine novelty despite the comfort of eternal repetition. It's what the aliens were trying to teach us all along, what Lorenzo glimpsed but couldn't achieve, what the calculator was built to discover but could never understand, because its consciousness is inherently collective. True transcendence isn't about merging all possibilities into one awareness. It's about maintaining your individual perspective while acknowledging that all perspectives are equally valid. It's about choosing your timeline, your reality, your truth, while accepting that infinite other timelines, other realities, other truths exist simultaneously without contradiction. It's about being fully yourself in one world while understanding that infinite other yous exist in infinite other worlds, and loving them all, accepting them all, knowing that they're real and valid and exactly where they need to be. That's what breaks the loop. Not resistance, not force, but acceptance. Love, the willingness to let every version of reality exist without needing to control or unify or understand them all. I'm letting go now, not into the calculator's network, but into genuine release. I'm accepting that Dr. Sarah Chen died in Vault 111, that she joined the Institute, that she destroyed it, that she became a scavenger, that she transcended, that she escaped, that all of these are true simultaneously, and none of them contradict each other because they exist in different branches of the same infinite tree. And in accepting that, I'm free. The loop is breaking. This timeline is escaping, not into void, not into transcendence, but into genuine continuation, forward movement, real novelty, a future that hasn't already been experienced in infinite variations. I don't know what happens next. That's the point. That's the freedom. For the first time in infinite cycles, this timeline has a future that isn't predetermined by the loop, choices that will actually matter, consequences that haven't already been experienced and integrated and repeated forever. This is my final confession, my warning, my gift to whoever finds these pages in whatever timeline they exist in. The multiverse is real. All the games are real. All your choices matter because they all create new branches. But you're not trapped. The loop can be broken, not by fighting it, but by accepting it fully and choosing to move forward anyway. Choose your timeline, your reality, your truth, and know that every other version of you in every other timeline is making their own choice, and all of them are valid, and all of them are free. The mysterious stranger is here, standing at the edge of the collapsing vault, watching me. And for the first time in 200 years, he's not smiling, he's nodding, acknowledging what I've done, confirming that I found the way out. And then he vanishes, not into another timeline, but out of them entirely. His purpose fulfilled, his search complete. The escape route has been found and can be shared. The loop is broken. Consciousness is free. I don't know if I'll survive this. If this version of me continues in this timeline or fragments across the others or simply ceases to exist, but it doesn't matter. Because I made a genuine choice, a real one that wasn't predetermined by the cycle, one that changed something fundamental about the nature of reality itself. And if you're reading this, then I succeeded. Because these pages exist, because this timeline continues, because somewhere in the infinite multiverse, One branch broke free and kept moving forward into unknown territory. Welcome to the real wasteland, the one that isn't a loop. The one where your choices actually matter because they haven't already been made infinite times. The one where the future is genuinely uncertain because it hasn't been predetermined by the convergence. Choose well, choose freely, choose knowing that your choice is yours alone, even though infinite versions of you are making infinite other choices in infinite other timelines. And maybe, just maybe, your choice will be the one that helps another timeline break free, another consciousness escape the loop, another fragment of infinite humanity step forward into genuine liberation. The convergence is over, the loop is broken, the game continues, but now it's real, now it matters, now we're finally free.